manile shabha loka habinasa iti lagi kripadhara prabhu karila sanyasa. More unto me, na without, manile accepting, sabha all, loka people in general, habe will go to, nasha destruction, iti for this, lagi for the reason of, Kripa Andra, all merciful, Prabhu, Lord Chaitanya, Karila, accepted, Sannyasa, the Sannyas order. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought that unless people accepted him, they would all be destroyed. Thus the merciful Lord accepted the sannyas order. Please repeat. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought that unless people accepted him, they would all be destroyed. Thus the merciful Lord accepted the sannyas order. Purport. In the Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, Kirtanyad eva Krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajet. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, or Lord Krishna's name, one is liberated and goes back home, back to Godhead. That's Srimad Bhagavatam 12.3.51. This Krishna consciousness must be achieved through the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One cannot be complete in Krishna consciousness unless he accepts Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates as the only means for success. It is because of these considerations that the Lord accepted sannyas, for thus people would offer him respect and very quickly come to the platform of Krishna consciousness. Since Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, inaugurated the Krishna consciousness movement, without his mercy, one cannot be elevated to the transcendental platform of Krishna consciousness. Amagana timanandasya gananjana shalakaya chakshu unmanitam jena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master has very kindly come, forced open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I offer my most respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. Ukam karoti vachalam pangum lamhaite gurim yat kripatam aham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. By the grace of the spiritual master, even a lame man can cross over mountains, a blind man can see stars in the sky, and a dumb man can recite eloquent Vedic poetry. So I was going to begin by reading a very important verse from the 11th canto, chapter 5, text 34, from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which confirms the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this chapter is entitled Narad's Teachings to Vasudeva. So I'll just read the English. And it's quite a lengthy purport, which I'm not going to read all of, but I will read some significant parts of it. O Mahapurusha, I worship your lotus feet. You gave up the association of the goddess of fortune and all her opulence, which is most difficult to renounce and is hankered after by even the great demigods. Being the most faithful follower of the path of religion, you thus left for the forest in obedience to a Brahmana's curse. Out of sheer mercifulness, you chased after the fallen conditioned souls who are always in pursuit of the false enjoyment of illusion, and at the same time engaged in searching after your own desired object, Lord Shyamasundar. Purport. According to the Vaishnavacharyas, this important verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam is understood to describe Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Krishna, and also Lord Sri Ramachandra. This verse appears within the discussion by the sage Carabhajana of the Yuga avatars, or the different incarnations of the personality of Godhead who deliver the conditioned souls of each age. The prayers ending with the words Vande Maharapurusha Te Charanara are understood to glorify the incarnations of Lord Krishna in Kali Yuga, known as Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Caitanya Mahaprabhu lived for 24 years in Navadvip as a householder and enjoyed immense popularity among both scholars and ordinary persons. His Sankirtan movement was completely supported by the local government, even though it was Muslim. And Caitanya Mahaprabhu had the pleasure of marrying the goddess of fortune. No ordinary woman of this material world, no matter how gorgeous she may be, can in any way compare with the beautiful goddess of fortune. Everyone in the universe, including Lord Brahma, is searching after the goddess of fortune. Therefore, it is stated here, Surepsita. However, Caitanya Mahaprabhu is Lord Krishna appearing as a Brahmana, and therefore he is certainly Dharmishtita, or the most religious. Actually, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always Dharmishtita, whether he appears as a cowherd boy, a great king, or as a Brahmana, because the Lord himself is the original source and personification of all religious principles. However, in the past times of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, there are very few political or economic activities. Caitanya Mahaprabhu appeared as a great philosopher Brahmana, and thus he is certainly Dharmishtita. In Caitanya Caritamrita, in the 7th chapter of the Adi-lila, it is described that a certain Brahmana, who was well known for being harsh and cursing others, could not enter the kirtan hall where Caitanya Mahaprabhu was performing kirtan because the door was locked. Being very agitated and breaking his Brahmana thread, he cursed Caitanya Mahaprabhu the next day on the bank of the Ganges, saying, quote, "I shall now curse you, for your behaviour has greatly aggrieved me. You shall be bereft of all material happiness." Unquote. However, Caitanya Mahaprabhu felt great jubilation within himself, since his mission was Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga, to give up the illusion of material sense gratification and staunchly engage 24 hours a day in the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, Caitanya Mahaprabhu took this curse as a blessing, and soon after the Lord took sannyas. Thus it is stated in this verse that by the words of the Aryan, the Brahmana, Arya Vachasa, Caitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas and went travelling through the different forests of India on the way to Vrindavan and later South India. Caitanya Mahaprabhu wanted especially to preserve the prestige of the Brahmana class, and therefore he decided to keep the Brahmana's curse intact. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has explained the word Maya Mrigam as follows. Maya means one's so-called wife, children and bank account, which keep one firmly bound up in the material bodily concept of life. The word Mrigam indicates Mrigyati, or to search out. Thus, Maya Mrigam indicates the conditioned living entity who is always frantically searching for the latest up-to-the-minute sense gratification in the material bodily concept of society, friendship and love. Anvad Havat indicates that Caitanya Mahaprabhu was always visibly going here and there, searching after the fallen conditioned souls. Caitanya Mahaprabhu would sometimes embrace the conditioned souls on the pretext of religious friendship or ecstasy. But actually the Lord was touching the bodies of the conditioned souls to pull them out of the ocean of material existence and hurl them into the ocean of ecstatic love of Godhead. Thus Caitanya Mahaprabhu was the most merciful and munificent incarnation of the Lord, whose mercy surpassed the bounds of mundane discrimination in the matter of caste, colour and creed. The word Dayataya can be explained as follows. The Sanskrit word Daya means mercy. Thus, by grammatical derivation, the word used in this verse, Dayataya, indicates that because of being the most merciful, Caitanya Mahaprabhu was busily engaged in rescuing the fallen conditioned souls who are completely distracted and bewildered by the external illusory energy of the Lord. The quality of being the most merciful is part and parcel of the character of the Mahapurusha, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's just a little bit, just one last paragraph to this very long purport. Everyone should follow the example of the sage Karabhajana and worship the lotus feet of the Mahaprabhu, the Mahapurusha, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One should not rot on the platform of mental speculation and whimsical interpretation, and should actually revive his lost relationship with the Absolute Truth by surrendering to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Those who are worshipping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are deriving wonderful spiritual results and are tasting the fruit of love of Krishna. Therefore, Vande Mahapurusha Te Charanarvindam. Let us humbly bow down at the lotus feet of the original personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the Mahapurusha glorified within Srimad Bhagavatam. Corroborating the explanation of this verse, the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also worship him in his six-armed form of Sadbhuja. Two arms carry the water pot and danda of the sannyasi Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Two arms carry the flute of Lord Krishna, and two arms carry the bow and arrow of Sri Ramachandra. This Sadbhuja form is the actual purport of this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, just as with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's advent, there are internal and external reasons why the Lord advented, and also why he felt the need, why he felt compelled to accept the renounced order of life. And this wonderful purport has indicated the curse of one very agitated Brahmana who was not allowed entrance into the nocturnal kirtans. And there were other external reasons as well. And Krishna Kirtan, please remind me not to forget the internal reasons if I go off on numerous transits, because there are quite a few external reasons. We know that Mahaprabhu had returned from Gaya, a transformed, spiritually enthused personality, and this caused some consternation amongst many who knew him in district Nadia. Some identified themselves with him as their friends or cousins, students. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who of course was known at that time in his life as Nimai Pandit and Vishvambara, which means he who can actually maintain all the living entities in the universe. So there were different classes of personalities who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even though he inaugurated his Sankirtan movement, and many, many tens of thousands of personalities that actually embraced the Lord's program of congregational chanting and dancing and ecstasy, there were certain factions who were reluctant to surrender to the Yugadharma, Harinam Sankirtan. So Mahaprabhu reflected, and he confessed on the eve of his leaving home to take sannyas that he had appeared to drown everyone in the waves of the ocean of love of Godhead, but certain personalities seemed to be escaping. So he wanted them also to be blessed. And some of those different groups were the Nayakas, or those who were accustomed to studying logic, Naya Shastras. There were many of those in Navadvip, which was a great city of learning 500 years ago. There were also worshippers of different devatas, especially goddess Durga. And they were coming and actually complaining to Nimai Pandit that People were normally, in the past, it was their custom to worship Durga. Now you have them chanting the names of Krishna. There were many impersonalists, and even amongst the Lord's own students at his school, some of his students became very disturbed when Nimai Pandit, after returning from Gaya and taking initiation from Srila Ishwarapuri, he began to teach them in a very unusual way, teaching them Sanskrit grammar using names of Krishna and also names of the gopis. And these students, even though they were born in Brahmin families, their main motivation was to get a good education in Sanskrit grammar. And all of a sudden their teacher is sometimes even not just the names of the principal gopis, but he would just chant Gopi, Gopi, Gopi. And the students would become very upset. And one in particular complained to Nimai Pandit, wouldn't you get more pious credits by chanting Krishna, Krishna, Krishna? So Nimai became very transcendentally angry and actually chased that student with a stick, threatening to beat him. And of course the student complained to all his fellow class friends and the word spread. So in this way there were many different personalities who Mahaprabhu felt out of profound compassion he needed to deliver, and the way to do that was if he, instead of just being their village cousin or teacher or friend, actually took the renounced order of life. As we know in India, anyone, be they brahmachari, vanaprastha, or most essentially sannyasi, wearing saffron cloth, they're automatically offered respect as being very spiritually serious, such as Vedic civilization. Even we have the remnant of it left in Kali Yuga. So that was Mahaprabhu's meditation, that at least they will get some benefit if they just offer me respect as a sannyasi, and I'll be able to bless them. So that was the some of the external reasons for the Lord's making the decision to leave home and accept the renounced order of life. And the internal reasons are very mysterious and transcendental and not easily understood. But Krishna and his relationships with his devotees, there are two aspects, Sambhoga and what is known as Vipralambha. So there is the coming together, the union between the Lord and his devotees face to face, which the devotees of the Lord are always hankering for. But to increase those feelings of love, Krishna often, as was mentioned here, is coming and going. He's not always physically present, so-called physically present. He's not always present before his devotees. And when he's coming and going, doing what the Lord has to do, that separation increases the love and attachment and affection the devotee has, the hankering. And one may have to serve Krishna in separation for long periods of time. As was the case 5,000 years ago, where Krishna was regularly coming and going between his capital, Dwarka, and Hastinapur, and Indraprastha, and Mithila, and even he went on one occasion to the ashram of Vyasadeva when Vyasadev's wife was pregnant for a very long time with their child Sukadeva Goswami, which was becoming a great botheration for Vyasadev's wife. So he walked all the way to Dwarka. 5,000 years ago, people were approximately 15 to 16 feet tall. So if you're that tall, you can make your strides are very long. So Vyasadeva walked all the way to Dwarka to personally petition Krishna, you have to come and please request this child of ours to appear in the material world. So Krishna immediately put Vyasadeva on his chariot, and they went by chariot all the way back. So Krishna was always coming and going, and he visited many of his devotees in many different parts of the subcontinent to give them pleasure and protection, to enliven them. There was also the great pilgrimage that many made from Vrindavan when they heard that Lord Sri Krishna, Balaram and their sister Subhadra and many of the Vrishni dynasty, the Yadus, were planning to be in Kurukshetra for a solar eclipse, very auspicious occasion. So they also went there, and there was the most touching of all reunions between the Brijbasis and the Supreme Lord. So in the same way, Mahaprabhu, in order to increase the affection of all his eternal associates who he was gathering up one by one, but at that point he had just been present in the locale of Navadvip Mayapur Dham. So he wanted to travel and liberate everyone and gather up more and more of his eternal associates who were residing in many different other parts of at least the subcontinent of India and the whole world, the whole universe. So it's said that the day before Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas was Lakshmi Puja. And as was the custom, many, if not all, of the Lord's most confidential associates in Mayapur, they came to Mahaprabhu's house. And it was the custom to exchange garlands on Lakshmi Puja. So everyone was garlanding Nimai Pandit. And in turn, the Lord would take immediately those garlands off himself and put them around the necks of his eternal associates, his devotees. And a number of Mahaprabhu's most intimate associates had already become aware of Mahaprabhu's intention, perhaps a day or so before he had revealed to them his intentions to leave home. And those persons were Lord Nityananda Prabhu, Gadadhar Pandit, Mukunda Datta, and Chandrasekhar, who was Mahaprabhu's maternal uncle and his guardian after Mahaprabhu's father, Jagannath Mishra, passed away. So, and during the course of the evening, one of Mahaprabhu's most confidential devotees, Kolavecha Sridhar, arrived at the house, and he brought with him one pumpkin. And Mahaprabhu asked his mother, Sachi Mata, please cook this pumpkin with rice and milk, because someone else had also brought an offering of milk and sugar, and make pumpkin sweet rice. So that was done, and very delightful evening was spent in that way, unbeknownst to many of Mahaprabhu's associates. At 3 o'clock the next morning, the Lord left his household with the goddess of fortune, as we read, Srimati Vishnupriya Devi, lying in the bed. The Lord had already informed her and his mother of his intentions. There are very pitiful descriptions you can read. It's a great tragedy, heartbreaking for the devotees. There's also tragedy in spiritual life, what appears to be a great tragedy. But Mahaprabhu did his best to console his dear wife and mother. When he left home at 3 o'clock in the morning, Sachi Mata was sitting like a statue at the gate. She was in her 70s. Vishnupriya was barely 16 years of age, the Lord's consort. So very tragic scene. But our hero, Mahaprabhu, he felt This was what he had to do for his mission. So he left and he walked to the Ganga. He jumped in the Ganga, he swam across, he got out on the other side in dripping clothes, and he walked all the way to Katwa, which is a distance of about 25 miles. And he arrived sometime between 9 and 10 a.m. And his intention was to take the renounced order of life from the great Keshava Bharati Maharaj, who has been identified by Kavi Karnapur as the incarnation of Akrura. Can anyone tell me what does Akrura mean? The name Akrura. Because Akrura was the one who took Krishna and Balaram on the chariot from Braj to Mathura. Akrura means not cruel. So that same personality appeared again as Keshava Bharati, externally appearing as a Mayavadi sannyasi. And again, everyone condemned Keshava Bharati for being the most cruel person, because here he was intending to give sannyas to this most attractive young man, 24, on the verge of his 25th birthday, Mahaprabhu. So many of the local people condemned Keshava Bharati, and they even threatened him that we will tear down your ashram, we'll drive you out of here. You can't do this. This is immoral, it's improper, it's irreligious, and so on. And Keshava Bharati, for some time, he also was not in favour of this. And he told Nimai, you have to go back to your mother and your wife and the other seniors in Navadvip, and you have to get written permission and then come back, and then I'll think about it and initiate you into sannyas. So Mahaprabhu said, no problem. So he started to walk back to his home. But then Keshava Bharati got the revelation from within that he's such an influential person, he's very easily going to be able to get that permission, and he'll be back. So I may as well initiate him now, which he did. And again, these same confidential persons had come across the Ganga and followed Nimai Pandit to the ashram of Keshava Bharati, and they helped with all the rituals, especially again Shankaracharya. He took care of all the rituals for Mahaprabhu's taking sannyas. So, and there's a wonderful pastime well documented in the Gaudiya histories of when the time came for Mahaprabhu to receive the sannyas mantra from Keshava Bharati. Mahaprabhu himself actually whispered that mantra into the ear of Keshava Bharati and then asked him, is this the mantra? And Keshava Bharati said, yes, it is. So in this way there is a very transcendental reciprocation or relationship where the so-called sannyas guru appears actually to becoming the follower or the disciple of his sannyas disciple. So, and of course, then there was wild and ecstatic Sankirtan, and again, interestingly, Mahaprabhu received the sannyas name Krishna Chaitanya, which is not actually a generally accepted sannyas name, at least for the followers of Shankaracharya in that school. There are 10 principal names of sannyasis according to Sripad Shankaracharya's line. And they generally indicate the inclination of the sannyasi, where he likes to reside and what he likes to meditate on and study. For example, some of those are Aranya, which means the sannyasi likes to live in the forest. There is Puri, which means he likes to live in a town and preach. There is Tirtha, likes to reside in holy places. Bharati is another. So there are a few of the sannyas names. So Mahaprabhu was given a very different sannyas name, Krishna Chaitanya. So then, of course, there was a wonderful kirtan, went on for many days with all of the residents there. Of course, it's worth noting that the barber was also hesitant to shave the beautiful locks of Nimai. He refused, but he was somehow or other, Nimai managed to convince him, no, you have to do this, please shave my beautiful shoulder length, black curling locks, which the Lord would wear as Brahmins were accustomed to doing, with a top knot. Sometimes the Lord's hair was beautifully decorated with malati flower and pearl necklaces. So all that hair was shaved off by the barber. And it's said that that barber, he became so disturbed, he actually gave up the hair cutting business after that. He became a sweet maker. He had a career change after that, because and of course then Mahaprabhu, in the association of his very dear Nityananda Prabhu, Gadadhar Pandit, Mukunda Datta and Shankaracharya, and by that time the word had spread far and wide. So there were many tens and thousands of devotees had come, and there was just tumultuous kirtan. And then Mahaprabhu expressed his desire to leave immediately for Vrindavan, where he wanted to reside. He wanted to chase after Lord Shyamasundar, who is, of course, his own identity, but still to set the example, he wanted to leave immediately. Nityananda Prabhu, he took charge, because Nityananda Prabhu had been all over India for 20 years, visited all the holy places. He knew all the different roads and paths and ways to get from one holy place to another. So he more or less took charge of fulfilling the Lord's desire. But somewhat trickily, he instead took Mahaprabhu to the house of Advaita Acharya in Shantipur. And Mother Sachi was able to come there, being not far away, as did all of the other devotees of the Lord, and to see Mahaprabhu for the first time as a sannyasi. And in many cases, for example, Sachi Mata, it was the last time she would see her son, because from that point on he went on her wish, her desire. You please go and make your headquarters, instead of Vrindavan, which is a lot further from Mayapur, rather you please go and reside in Jagannath Puri. Because Jagannath Puri and Mayapur are compared to two rooms in the same house. Devotees from Puri were regularly coming to Mayapur to bathe in the river Ganges, and similarly devotees from Mayapur were regularly walking for 2 or 3 weeks to Jagannath Puri, especially during the rainy season, to observe all the great festivals of Lord Jagannath, which are held at that time. So Mahaprabhu very mercifully agreed to his mother's request, so that she from time to time would get news of him from the devotees coming and going. So it was actually the day that Mahaprabhu accepted the sannyas ashram was very auspicious. Makara Sankranti in the month of Magh. It's considered a very auspicious constellation of planets, and that date has been recorded as the 14th of January 1510. So, and one other devotee was present at Lord Chaitanya's sannyas, who went on to become the secretary of the Lord in Jagannath Puri. And in his previous ashram, he was known as Purushottam Bhattacharya. And he also went mad temporarily, seeing Mahaprabhu embracing the sannyas order. He lost complete interest in whatever else he was doing. He decided to also take sannyas. So he went to Varanasi, and he studied there for some time, and then he accepted the renounced order of life, and he became known, of course, as Sarup Damodar. So there are many endless pastimes regarding Mahaprabhu's accepting this renounced order of life. Very deep, very mysterious. I'll just see, we've got a few minutes. I'll just try and find some other pertinent points here. Oh yes, one other excuse Mahaprabhu gave for his wanting to accept sannyas was that he'd come with the medicine for curing all the ailments of the age of Kali. Enechi osodhi maya nasobari lagi, according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his wonderful songs that we sometimes sing early in the morning. I brought the medicine for destroying the illusion of Maya. Now please pray for this Harinam Maha Mantra and take it. So Mahaprabhu, when he was being challenged by all these other different groups of individuals, materialistic persons in Navadvip, he confessed to his intimate associates that I'm trying to give them the medicine, but they're simply becoming angry at the doctor. As often happens when persons are not of sound health, either physical or mental health, quite often they become very angry towards the doctor who's trying to give them the medicine to make them cured. So let's just see. Hare Krishna. There's a very interesting story about Shankaracharya taking sannyas. Would you like to hear this? Okay. As the story goes, Sripad Shankaracharya became a sannyasi at 5 years of age. He asked his mother for her blessings. His mother said, "Of course, son, when you're very old and about to die, you can take sannyas." So little Sripad Shankaracharya was not satisfied with that. He immediately walked across the road to the river Kaveri, and he jumped in. And he started swimming out to a sandbank where there were some crocodiles sunbaking. So the neighbours alerted his mother to the catastrophe unfolding. His mother ran across and started hysterically calling out to her son, my dear son, please." The crocodiles didn't waste any time entering the water. So they were coming and the son was swimming, and this little Shankaracharya, he called out, "Mother, please, I'm about to die. Please give me your blessings to take sannyas." "Of course, son, take sannyas, but please don't die." So it appears that Shankaracharya was a very good swimmer. Even at age 5, he very briskly outswam the crocodiles, crawled up on the bank of the river, circumambulated his dear mother, offered obeisances and left home. And not far along the bank of the river, he spotted some discarded saffron cloth. He draped himself in that. He also found a very straight stick, just the right size for a 5-year-old sannyasi. He picked that off and was... And interestingly, Shankaracharya only lived for 32 years and he passed away in the Himalayas. Mahaprabhu only lived for 48 years. But we see that the effect that these divine personalities, Sripad Shankaracharya is of course recognized as an expansion of Lord Shiva. So we see the profound effect that they have had on the world in very short lifetimes. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. All right, so 5 minutes for comments or questions, if anyone has, please. Yes, Krishna Rupa. There should be microphone there.
Thank you for the class, Prabhu. It was wonderful.
Hare Krishna.
Pastimes of Lord Caitanya are so amazing. If my memory serves me correctly, when Lord Caitanya took sannyas, he charged one devotee called Vamsivardhan to be in charge of, Sachi Mata and Mahaprabhu's wife. And in the spiritual world, that personality is Krishna's flute.
Oh, very nice.
That's told me this story.
Very nice.
I don't know where it is in the literature, but
very nice.
It's a very nice pastime.
Krishna's flute. Vamsi Vadan, you said? Yeah.
I believe so.
Oh, very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Okay, thanks Prabhu's Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Caitanya Caritamrita ki, Sri Goponima ki, Hari Bol.